Hello, everyone. My name is Jayshree Seth, and I'm a corporate scientist and chief science advocate at 3M. And I am also one of the newest members of the Board of Trustees at the Science Museum of Minnesota, which, of course, you know is a nonprofit organization that exists to turn on the science, inspire learning, inform policy, and improve lives. Today, it's an honor to be chatting with astronaut Scott Kelly. He is a veteran of 4 space flights and has commanded the International Space Station on 3 expeditions. And in October 2015, he set the record for the total accumulated number of days spent in space. In addition to being a retired astronaut, he's a former military fighter pilot, an engineer, and a retired U.S. Navy captain. He is also the author of a new book for young readers called Goodnight Astronaut. Here it is, and I keep it right by his other book, Endurance. I hope many of you have read that. It's my signed copy from when he visited us at 3M in 2018. I actually first met Scott in New York City that year when we were both interviewed about the importance of science in our daily lives. And I was just thinking about it. The last time we met was in 2019, halfway around the world in Kazan, Russia, where we both happened to keynote an event. It has been a privilege to be connected with someone so accomplished, so smart, and so humble. I'm honored that he also wrote an endorsement for my book, The Heart of Science. It's great to see you again, Scott, and welcome.
Well, it's great to be here with you, Jayshree, and I have enjoyed our working relationship. Since it started when I got back after my year in space. So I look forward to this conversation.
So, are you ready to answer some great questions submitted by our Science Museum community?
I hope so.
All right.
Depends on the
Let's
question.
see here. The first question is from Colleen ZD, who wants to know, does food taste different in space?
Well, it does for some people, and it's not because it has nothing to do with the being in space. It's more in the absence of gravity. You get, fluid shifts throughout your body. Our physiology evolved to oppose the force of gravity to push, blood from the lower parts of our body up to the upper parts that need it the most. And, when you go to space, that force no longer exists in the same way. So you get a readjustment of the fluid, and a lot of that fluid winds up in your head. And it, affects, it causes kind of swelling in your head. I think it affects also, people's sinuses. So sometimes things don't taste quite the same as they do on Earth. And we kind of learned that a lot during the space shuttle program, where people would load up on the food items that they really liked on Earth only to get to space and find that they didn't have a taste for them.
Wow. So I'm sure it felt really good when you got back after your long stay and had some real food.
Well, interestingly enough, it wasn't really the food that I missed when I was in space. The space food, it's not great. If it was great, we would have restaurants that were called space food, and they would serve space food. So we don't have those. So the food isn't great. But what I missed more was just the relaxing nature of sitting at a table and not worrying about your utensils floating away and being able to share a meal with, friends and family. Which, during this pandemic, we kind of missed that a little bit too. So I'm looking forward to getting back to that.
That's true. That's true. Okay, the next question is from Leif G, who is 4 years old. And he wants to know, why does an astronaut's heart shrink in space? Does it? I guess I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah, right? So again, our bodies evolved in gravity. And like I was saying, in the absence of that gravity, you get the fluid shift throughout your body, and your heart no longer has to work as hard to oppose that that force. It's no longer pumping blood up to your head. It's just circulating blood around your body. So it doesn't have to be as strong. And our bodies are really smart. And when you're in space, and if your body realizes you don't need as much bone, it gets rid of your bone mass because it no longer is required to support your skeleton. Likewise, your heart is not working as hard, so it loses some of its muscle mass. There was a recent article in a study done that compared my data to data from a guy that was attempting to swim across the Pacific Ocean. Now, just because he's in the water doesn't mean it's like microgravity. It's, he's not floating like we are in space. But the fact that he was prone, the fact that he was lying down for a really long period of time when he was swimming, the results that compared the two of us, they did similar tests on him, and his heart shrunk almost about the same amount as mine did.
Wow, very interesting. Well, all I can tell you, Scott, is even if your heart shrinks, it's still very big.
That's my wife said that to that same thing. Amico said that to President Obama. I was in the Oval Office after my space flight, and my brother Mark was explaining all the the things that happened to our physiology to the president, and he said, "Yeah," and his heart shrunk. And Amico immediately chimed in and said, "Well, good thing he had a big heart." And then President Obama instantly said, "She's a keeper."
Yeah, oh wow, yeah, I love her. Our next question is from Nora K, who's 7 years old, and she wants to know how much space junk did you see when you were up there? Good question.
You see some stuff, but it's generally stuff that has come off the space shuttle or the space station. When you fly a shuttle mission, you might see some ice. Um, if you do a spacewalk, sometimes you might disturb something and you might get a piece of material that might, like paint or something, that might float away. But the space junk that you're talking about is the junk that's not from, the space station or the space shuttle. And that stuff is going really, really fast. So, imagine two pieces of, the space station going this way and a piece of space junk going this way. That's 35,000 miles an hour of closure. That's 20 times faster than a bullet from a rifle. So it's not something you can easily see unless it was in a similar orbit and it was just kind of like close to your position and close to your speed. Um, I have on a few occasions, not as many as you might think, have seen stuff hit the atmosphere. So whether that was a piece of space junk or maybe deep space micrometeoroid or something, I don't know. But I have seen that a few times. But just all the stuff we have, which is a lot. I mean, it's a lot of stuff up there, and it is becoming a bigger and bigger problem. The more, as time goes on, we make it worse, unfortunately. But not stuff that you can easily see. The space station gets hit all the time, but fortunately, it has debris shielding, and it hasn't gotten hit with anything big yet.
Okay, wow, that's good to know. This one is from your number one fan, Sarah I, and she wants to know what were some of your favorite views of Earth from the International Space Station?
Well, I think the most beautiful place to look at from space is the Bahamas. I mean, it's so expansive and blue. Blue's my favorite color, so it's always got my attention. I would always like to take a brand new astronaut or cosmonaut to the window as we were flying over the Bahamas just to see their reaction, and on the beauty of it. After that, I think just the tropical waters and the deserts are strikingly beautiful. The colors of the deserts, particularly the orange, yellows, red colors, are very, very beautiful. Interestingly enough, the places like in North America as an example, there's a lot of trees here and they're green, and those colors generally don't transmit through the atmosphere as well for some reason. So even though you might have places, in the United States that are, some of the most beautiful places on Earth, it doesn't lend itself very easily to seeing how beautiful it is from space.
Very interesting. Sarah, you should also check out Scott's book. It has some views in it. um, Eric I wants to know, what is one misconception people have about space travel? Is there any truth to what we see in movies or on TV?
There's a lot of truth. I mean, there's a lot of good movies out there, I think, that depict space travel very well. Apollo 13, I think The Martian did a really good job. Some of the other movies and TV shows are, interesting, entertaining. One I'm watching now that I really like is For All Mankind. It's on Apple TV, and it's, a revisionist history on what would have happened if the Soviet Union beat the United States to the moon. So I've been enjoying that. But the misconceptions, some people think the space shuttle goes to the moon or went to the moon when it was flying. That's not accurate. Another misconception is that we are floating in space because we're far away from the Earth. That's a very, very common one. And to clear that up, I'm going to explain to you why we are floating. And that's, gravity on the space station, the gravity of Earth is almost the same as it is on Earth. That distance away does not really affect the force of Earth's gravity. The reason we are floating is, imagine if you took like a baseball and threw it. If I took a baseball and threw it, it'd probably, go, 25 feet maybe, but it would take this parabolic trajectory towards, the Earth. It's because gravity is pulling that baseball down. Now imagine if I was Superman and I had this infinitely powerful arm and I could throw the ball so far, and if there was no friction with the air friction, so if I was in space beyond the atmosphere, if I was to throw that ball really, really far, it's going to take a similar trajectory because of the gravity of Earth. But my arm is so strong that it's going to, instead of fall and hit the ground, it's going to fall around the Earth. So it's because the space station or the space shuttle or the spaceship is falling around the Earth, and because we're inside of it, we are falling too. So we are experiencing what's called microgravity. So there's a little gravitational influence in space. It's minus 10 to the 6 power microgravity, but that's a very, very common misconception. People think that when you see a rocket launch and it goes straight up, it just continues to go straight up. But really what you do is you go up a little ways, you get out of the thick atmosphere, you level off, and you get going really fast, so you get that falling around the Earth effect.
Wow, yeah, I'm having visions of when we first learned about escape velocity in, I think, 7th grade physics. Yeah. So Tucker K, who is 8, wants to know, who is your favorite astronaut in like movies or on TV or books?
Like real astronaut or fake astronaut?
You pick.
Mark Kelly.
Ah, good answer.
Actually, that's my twin brother, who's now a U.S. Senator, by the way. So I would say, a lot of times, the common answers that people may say are guys like Neil Armstrong and, Alan Shepard, the first man in space, or first American in space, John Glenn, first American to orbit the Earth. But I think most astronauts would say, including myself, it's John Young. And he's someone that you may or may not heard of, but he flew, 2 Gemini missions. He flew 2 Apollo missions, Apollo 10 when they went around the moon for the first time, but then he was also the commander of Apollo 16, and he had the privilege, and I'm not going to say to walk on the moon, because one time he said to my daughter, he said, I told her to introduce herself to him and say, hey, did you walk on the moon? He said, no, I didn't walk on the moon. I worked on the moon. It was a lot of hard work. But the fact that he was the commander of the space shuttle is a mission that is very impressive to people in the know, because that was the first time in human history that any person had gotten into a rocket that had not been previously tested with launches into space with no one inside. So, it was very risky for him and Bob Crippen to do that. But then also the fact that, once he was done flying in space, he really devoted the rest of his life to the space program. He became like kind of like the conscience of the astronaut office, and until he couldn't work anymore because of his age. So he's my favorite.
Wow. Well, thanks for bringing that to light. Sarah, and I know who our favorite astronaut is, but it's good to hear who yours is. Okay, Margot M is wondering, do you have a favorite song about space?
Ooh, um, favorite song about space? Um, Probably Rocket Man.
Oh, good
It's
one.
really not about space, but it's I like Elton John, so it's a pretty catchy tune.
It is, it is.
I mean, I guess it's about space, right?
Yes, yes, that's a good
All
one.
the science I don't understand. It's just my job 5 days a week. I'm sure Jayshree would understand all the science. I particularly didn't.
I'm learning something as we speak. All right. Mariah I wants to know, how did you communicate with crew members on board the ISS who spoke different languages? And it might be Maria. I'm sorry, Maria. Maria I. So how did you communicate with the folks who spoke different languages?
So, the official language of the space station is English. So theoretically, everyone knows how to be functional in English. Not always the case where you have people that are like fluent in the language, English. So, and on the Russian Soyuz, we speak Russian, but that's for a short period of time. Going to the space station and coming home. Generally, the cosmonauts, the native Russian speakers, are better at speaking English than we are at Russian for a number of reasons. One is apparently it's easier to go from Russian to English than English to Russian. Somebody, expert on languages figured that out. But I think also it's because Russians are exposed to English at a young age. A lot of them take it in school, like half take English, half take German. They're exposed to it culturally, and they have a reason to learn English outside of their job in the space program, because it makes just doing stuff internationally a lot easier, because it's kind of like become the international language. So their English, the cosmonauts' English, is generally better than the astronauts' Russian, but sometimes you'll even mix both languages within the same sentence, and we've called that like Runglish, I think is the name for it on the space station. But and then if you're having trouble getting your point across with somebody, generally there's another crew member on board that is better, that can interpret a little bit, but that's really not required much. I was on the space station with a Kazakh astronaut for about a week one time, and his English was not all that great. Likewise, my Russian isn't that great either. So, sometimes we required a little bit of interpretation.
Wow, that brings me back to memories from our trip to Kazan. So, eta большая привилегия to be talking to you today. How was that for Runglish?
A big privilege.
Yeah, I just said it's a privilege to be talking to you. Spasiba. Okay, next one. Cass F wants to know, can astronauts wear glasses in space?
Yep. Yeah, we wear glasses. They'll even sit on your head too if they're like, I used to wear these like that. You actually have to, consider your vision, because like I was saying earlier, when that fluid shifts and you don't have that force of gravity, that can affect the shape of your eye, which can affect your visual acuity. So sometimes you get astronauts that don't wear glasses, that need them once they get into space. Sometimes people that need them don't need them any longer. And oftentimes your prescription changes when you're there. So, you always bring the prescription you think you'll need or that you use on Earth, and then some other powers in case you get that change in your visual acuity.
Wow. But you have to, I suppose, make sure that they're nicely affixed, otherwise they'll be floating, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we, yeah, everything floats, but um, even in space, these would like stay on my head, right? Because they'll even stay on my head with gravity pushing them down. So um, we've had people lose their glasses in space, and
Right, right.
remember I was on board the space station with a guy who lost his glasses, and then later in the mission he found somebody else's glasses. He was really happy.
Okay, the next one is from Os F, who wants to know, are astronaut suits fireproof, or are they waterproof? How about bulletproof?
So they're designed for different things. There's generally two types of spacesuits. There's the one that's like right there, which is a Russian so-called spacesuit, which is designed for launch and landing. The orange suits that you would see NASA astronauts wear during the space shuttle days were the same, of the same design. So that suit, it protects you from fire. It's fire retardant. Um, it provides a pressurized environment if you lose pressure in the capsule, so it will maintain the pressure inside the suit to about 4 psi. Not the 14.7 we're at now, but enough pressure that you'll survive. And then it provides a breathable atmosphere inside. Oxygen, nitrogen, air, basically. That is not an exposure suit, whereas the orange astronaut suit does all the same functions as that one, but it's also sort of an exposure suit in that if you landed in cold water, it's designed to give you some type of protection from the cold. Now the EMU, which is the spacesuit that I got an orange. Just realized I have an orange exposure suit right here. But the EMU, which is the one we wear for spacewalks, provides all those functions. It's fire retardant. Not that you would have issues with a fire out in the vacuum of space because you need, oxygen to have a fire. But I believe the material is fire retardant. It provides a pressurized atmosphere because you now are going into a vacuum intentionally. So it removes carbon dioxide from from the breathable atmosphere. It provides you with oxygen, 100% oxygen in this case, and it is somewhat bulletproof. And that's one of the big differences between those other two suits I talked about. So if you get hit by some kind of orbital debris, it's not going to penetrate the suit or may avoid penetration. I don't know if I would shoot a gun at it. I'm pretty sure I wouldn't, but and I don't know how it would do, but it's designed to protect you from that. The other big difference is it's a self-contained thing. That spacesuit that we do spacewalks in, and likewise the Russian Orlan spacesuit, is really kind of like a little spaceship itself. It provides all the life support functions that a spacecraft does. And in the case of the one that the astronauts wear, it has a little jetpack in case you become detached. You can fly yourself back to safety.
Wow, there's so much science and technology and engineering and math that goes into making of that. And I just am appreciating all of that based on what you're saying. It's great. This is another good one. Zoe H would like to know, what's something you wish we knew about space, but we don't yet?
What existed before space? That's what I want to know. The Big Bang happened, what was that, like 13 point something billion years ago, I think? Something had to be there or exist before then, I would imagine. And what was it? I'm sure we're never going to find out, though, unfortunately. Maybe, who knows? I wouldn't say never.
Right. With all the work going on and like understanding of black holes and how stars are born and all of that and the string theory and this and that, you'd think that we'd at least sort of come up with some hypothesis. But yeah, it's just fascinating to think about that. Here's the toughest one of them all, and we saved it for last. Jake S. is wondering, who is the better pilot, you or your brother Mark?
Well, I think we're both a little bit biased. He flew the A6 Intruder, which is an attack airplane. I flew the F-14 Tomcat, which is much cooler fighter plane, harder to land on the ship in than the A6, I'm pretty sure. Um, he's flown twice as the pilot of the space shuttle, twice as the commander of the space shuttle. I've only done each of those one time because I then went and did some long duration space flights on the Russian Soyuz to the space station. I would say probably, like many things, though, we're probably pretty evenly matched.
Good answer. I wonder what he is going to answer to that one. We should not tell him your answer and ask him. Thank you so much, Scott, for answering all of our questions. And thank you to everyone who sent them in and to all the viewers for joining us. A special shout out to the young students. And as Scott writes in his book, if you close your eyes and dare to dream, you can go anywhere, you can do anything. So make sure to share this video with all the super space fans you know and visit smm.org to turn on the science anytime. And don't forget to check out Scott's book the next time you visit the museum store. Bye now.
Well, thank you, Jayshree, and I just want to give a shout out to the Stillwater Area High School. I understand they had great success with their Mars rover robotic project, and hey, I really enjoyed speaking to you today, answering all the great questions we had, and just want to encourage the kids to do their best. You never know what opportunities you'll have in your life. I've been very fortunate, but if it wasn't for getting a good education, those opportunities wouldn't be there for me. So just keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Bye.
Bye bye.